I think we're live now. What's up, creative community? It's such a blast to have you guys back once again. This is Lorenzo from the COACHMC studio. Welcome you guys to the last video of this year of 2021. And this is going to be a video that kind of puts everything together, that kind of holds and encompasses everything we hold so dearly here at the COACHMC studio, because this is the place where we'll help you to shape unique behavior deliveries and where we'll help you to get recognized in the audition room, talking to the acting community, to the performing community, to all the beautiful and crazy and creative entertainers out there, how we can propel ourselves in this crazy, wicked, wonderful, wacky business called entertainment industry. How can we display all of our abilities, how we can dig deep inside of ourselves to bring forth some more treasures that we will show, and how to work on ourselves, how to have more creative output, but also more traction, how to get a grip on this beautiful context that is called life, and our artistic display, our acting abilities, our craft, how we can progress as human beings and artists at the same time. All these beautiful questions. Welcome to this last episode of the year. Once again, this is Lorenzo from the COACHMC studio, and it's such a blast to have you guys live in the chat room also today. So I'm going to answer all of your questions. If you have any remarks, any comments, any ideas, and any questions regarding your acting career, regarding self-tapes, regarding headshots, regarding acting in English, regarding how we can use art in our craft even more, and how we can develop ourselves, regarding pilot season that is coming up, and taking part in all these crazy and beautiful endeavors, please write everything you know, everything you want to know in the chat room, in the comment section below, and let's talk about everything. Let's connect with each other. I like to know you a little bit better. I like to get a bit closer to you guys, because you've been following me throughout this year on the various social platforms I have. It's the COACHMC on Instagram and also on Facebook, where I see many of your questions, your comments. I receive many of your DMs and messages, and also some emails through my website. It's the coachmc.studio. And I want to know what type of actors you are, what kind of endeavors you have, what kind of quests you have, and where you like to improve, what you like to know, and where this whole thing can lead us in the upcoming years, and what kind of interesting projects and outlooks we have as artists, as actors in this business, and how we can create also potentially our own niche, how we can start our side business, our own business, on how to teach ourselves to get better with certain skills, to kind of, show our magnificent crafts to as many people as possible, to reach not as many people as possible, but to the right people in the industry, to reach the audience, and also have a notion already before you get even called to action in the audition room, and before you even start to shoot amazing projects, to get a notion of how people react to you, how they perceive you, how you get acquainted with the audience, what kind of feedback you get from the audience. All of these beautiful topics we're going to cover in this live session today. I'm super pumped you're joining. We have a few people already watching, so smash the like button. Make sure to show the algorithm what's valuable to you, what you kind of hold dearly. And thank you so much for joining the show, everybody out there, because yeah, truly, it's the end of the year. It's the 30th of December. We're looking back at a crazy year. So many things happen, and I guess a lot of people are already busy with the preparations for New Year's Eve. I hope everybody out there as well. So I don't take it for granted that even 2 people are watching. It's great you guys are joining the channel. It's great you guys are here. So I'm waiting for your questions, and we're going to unroll the whole thing. So if you got anything, just let me know. I will make sure to answer all of your questions, your remarks, your comments, and also get back to me through my website. If you, after this video, I had the feeling, all right, this is maybe something interesting. If you don't know me already, I want to get to know this guy a little bit better. Maybe we can talk about a certain project, a show reel that you as an actor, maybe you're starting out in the business, in the industry, and you want to start, creating a portfolio, start getting a notion of how to kind of expand, and how to create monologues for yourself, and, some sort of repertoire you can show to casting directors, producers, important people in the business and industry. So contact me if you got the feeling that we could be a great match for each other, working together. We will start a live trial, 30 minutes. As soon as you contact me, send me a message, and we see if we're a good fit for each other. And there are many things that we can work and exercise in Zoom sessions and live sessions and online sessions, talking about your craft, talking about some important auditions coming up, talking about some great self-tapes coming up that you want to really put some effort in, and you want to do a great show. You want to record something great, a great tape for an important audition. Contact me, I'm your man. So let's dive right into it. Hello, everybody. And let's talk about art and why art is so important and so fundamental, especially when we're talking about acting, because not even the majority of actors, I think, have the notion that acting is actually an art, right? It's some sort of craft, of a craftsmanship, of a talent. But a lot of people kind of underestimate the value of a great acting performance, I think, and how impactful movies can be, and the messages integrated in movies can hit us subconsciously and consciously, and how many things can work inside of ourselves because there was like a chain reaction set off by a great movie, by a great script, by a great play or a great monologue. So of course acting is art, because it is made to be visible. It is displayed through craftsmanship, through repetition. It is created by observation and self-educating yourself as an artist in the process, and then displaying it and letting people perceive your inner feelings, your emotions, your ideas, and what you manifest, right? This transformation from information, from the author, from the pages, from the sides, this transformation through yourself, through your own inner mechanics and gears and fantasy and imagination and creativity, this transformation then to show something that was once just a sheet of paper, and then it becomes like a visual and tangible performance and expression and experience the audience can perceive. That is art, and that is so beautiful. So already before we start, I got a beautiful question here. I'm not an actor. It's from Kleine Ida. Thank you so much for commenting. I'm not an actor, but how many auditions does one have as an actor throughout a year? How does that change when one has a steady enrollment in a production? That's a great question. Just to start off, it really depends on how many servers out there you've planted your seed. That means there are many servers out there like Cast Forward, Etalanta, Crew United, Filmmakers.com, Spotlight, so on and so forth, where you can actually place your portfolio and upload your material, your CV, your videos, and then people from international productions looking out for those open casting calls, looking for people in those various countries where they plan to shoot. They can look up your material, and if you're really kind of invested in putting and uploading new material frequently all over the year, throughout the year, on those various platforms, and recontacting people that you worked with. And if you are very busy on LinkedIn and you're great at networking, there can be many auditions coming up throughout the year. You can do a lot for yourself, and that is in itself an art, right? Keeping the context, creating new material, looking out for great new stuff, working on your skills, and talking to the people in the industry, talking to the relevant people in your industry. That already can boost your career, your enrollment into auditions throughout the year a lot. And of course, if you got like a regular enrollment, it becomes a bit more difficult to run to all the auditions or even shoot auditions at your place, because there's so much work that you need to do. If you got a serious enrollment and it really kind of takes you every day on set, then it becomes of course also a question of how you organize your daily schedule and how many things you can do at the same time without losing too much of your quality. So that kind of also depends on, once you work on a steady basis, that depends then on you judging if that project is so important that you want to invest a lot of time in, instead of studying for your role or for the next day that you need to shoot, right? So it kind of depends on how serious you are behind all these endeavors, and what your prerogatives, and also what is really important to you, right? But first of all, before we get to shoot, right? I wanna take a step back before we get to be actors and working and enjoying the fame or enjoying the auditions, enjoying the networking, enjoying this beautiful life. I wanna take a step back just for a second. Look at this year, because I mean it's not a coincidence we've chosen this magnificent day today. Tomorrow a new year slowly comes in. So this is the last day of the year. And so it means we have the chance to look back and make some observations, look at ourselves, look at society, look at the community, look at the culture, look at our industry as actors. What has happened so far? What happened throughout the year on a global scale or in your community and in normal life? Um, when you really think about it, and I think this is also the overarching topic of today's video, of this live session that I want to share with you guys. When you look at the whole thing, that is called life and its existence in our civilization and in the northern hemisphere for sure, it means that you are frequently kind of put into a mechanism where you need to function, where you need to repeat, where you need to absorb quickly and release even quicker, where you need to kind of repeat and many actions on a daily basis, where we have expiration dates, where we need to be on time. And it starts even before we get into our working habit, into being adults and grinding and working and living the civilized life. Before we even start to do that, we are at school. And even at school, people serve us information. We need to repeat that information thoroughly and as precise as possible. Then we can take the next step and the next step. So we are encompassed and enclosed in this mechanical process. And that's not a critique. I'm not judging that. It's just the way the system works, because well, many people in our suburban areas and a lot of big cities, they need to be organized, right? We need a system of rules, of laws, and we need to obey to all these regulations, to all these restrictions, to all these laws, to all these visible and invisible laws and expiration dates that are always there. Our calendar itself is, if you search for the root meaning, the etymological meaning of calendar, just means that on a regular basis you need to pay your taxes, your debts with the state, right? It means actually book of debts. That's what the actual meaning of calendar is. So whether we are at school or we are in our working life already, or well, whether we are studying, like when we are studying at the big universities where we need a lot of money for the tuition, a lot of books, a lot of fees, a lot of technical material that we need to study, whether it is, if we're talking about academic grades, there's a lot to invest. There's a lot of mechanical work you need to do beforehand, before you even absorb the knowledge, that it's just a repetition of somebody else who acquired this knowledge through repetition. So this whole system is based on repeating patterns of always doing the same habitual actions, of performing the same things over and over again, day in, day out, for a long period of time. That kind of trickles into our brain. That's how the system manifests. Again, it's not judging. It's not, I don't want to, it's in a way, I think the system needs like a working mechanical gear that kind of encompasses and puts us into some sort of regulations. Otherwise, it would be just madness and craziness all over the place. But then again, when we're talking about acting, when we're talking about art, that's highly based on intuition, on irrationality, on craziness, also in a way, on creativity, on thinking outside or at the edge of the box, on jumping to different conclusions and being completely irrational and all over the place. Sometimes that kind of contradicts the working gear that we have to fulfill throughout the day, right? When it comes to acting and art, we need to be pretty much the opposite of that mechanical system of repetition over and over again, until we get gratified with our rewards, that when we're working, then we get our check, our paycheck, or when we're at school we get some good grades, or when we are at the university, then we finally become some fancy PhD, or we achieve mastery at some academical job that we want to invest our time and our life in. So we always get rewarded by repeating and by following the same mechanical habits all the time. And all of a sudden, when we're talking about acting and art, it's pretty much the opposite. Then we have to step out of the mechanical wheel and start to blossom up more organically, more spontaneously, more naturally, more irrationally. And that's hard. That's hard to achieve. It's not always working perfectly, right? When you have to be all over the place during your day, and then you get an audition, and it's kind of, for the next 12 hours plan. They call you in even before, and then you have to jump to the next place, and before that you need to pick up your groceries, and then all of a sudden you get into the audition room, and you need to be the spontaneous and fantastic artist, right, that puts on a great show. So that's hard to achieve. And even if that sounds like a paradox, sometimes in order to achieve that liberty of taking your break outside of that mechanical process and mechanize yourself, and to, in a way, it's also to make yourself more an artistic object instead just of a functional mechanical object. So to do that, you need repetition as well. You need education and skill, observation and learning as well. It doesn't mean that this just comes out of chaos, out of the blue. It doesn't mean that art is just this area where you can go crazy with no rules and no laws and no assignments. Of course, that is not working. We need structure to create art. We need education. We need learning. We need rehearsals. We need repetition there too. But just as being the fundament then for the great chapel that you want to construct, the great cathedral that you want to place in front of the audience's eyes so they get impressed by your expression, right? That comes from the creativity, the imagination, the fantasy that is tangible then, but it's created by the substantial work, the fundamentals that you need to place in before. And how can we do that? How can we create out of a very static and severe system? How can we create something that is beautiful, crazy, and absolutely free to admire? How do these worlds kind of interact with each other? How can they work with each other? And I want to answer that during that live session, or at least my attempt is to get as close as possible to an answer to that question, to that equation, looking at our experience as the COACHMC studio, because here for 10 years now, I'm coaching people from all over the globe, which is one of the greatest privileges I've ever experienced in my life. I don't know why this kind of happened to me, but it happened, and I accept it willingly because it's beautiful. And we here at the studio, I've worked with actors from all over the globe, like literally, whether they are from the United States, from India, from Africa, from Europe, from Southern America, Latin America. And the amazing thing is, over the years, what I've come down to realize is that everybody's searching for beauty, for liberty, for freedom, for a flawless and natural, authentic expression. And everybody's trying to kind of put in as much work and much pressure and much passion as possible to make that audition happen, to come across as a realistic person in the moment of where the scene actually takes place, or the monologue takes place, or the whole script takes place. Everybody had just that wish to make other people happy. And that is so unifying about art, and so beautiful about the acting craft, that everybody just wants to entertain the audience in a magnificent way. So if you're uniquely prepared, then you can perform in a remarkable way, and both worlds kind of melt, and they kind of morph into each other, into this new expression, into this new world. And then it becomes perceivable and it's entertaining. Because if art is destructive, or it's just a tool of maleficent or malevolent forces, if it's just a tool to kind of legitimize power, then it's not art, because it's not free. Then it's just a tool. I'm not talking about that type of art or acting. I'm talking about what you got inside of yourself, and how we can express that in the most beautiful and natural way. So I got 2 questions here before I kind of get down into the nitty gritty that I want to address right away. So it's Alessandra Rucco. How do you train, and what do you study to be a coach? how do I train, like personally as a coach, and what do I study to be a coach? I think I know what you mean. So how do I train? I watch relentlessly what other actors, what other directors, what other artists are doing. Like throughout the day, I study architecture, I study filmmakers, I study other actors, what they say, what they did, some movies, some clips, some monuments, some paintings they made, and I try to, through this observation, understand what their ideas were, what their motivation was, what their instruments have been, like they used to do that, and what kind of smart moves they implied, because it's all about the smartness, because art is also very smart in a way, and that's why it's called how to use art smart, because art in itself is it's a big issue, it's just a big topic, it's a metaphysical body. You can't really grasp what art is. It's very subjective. First of all, it belongs to each and every one of us, and I think all 8 billion people on this planet, they might have a different opinion on art, on what art actually is, and what great acting is, right? Some people like this actor more, and some people think this actor is actually rubbish, he's not good at all, and the other actor is great, and some people might think the other actor actually sucks, and prefer another actress. So art is subjective, but it can unify us once we perceive it, and it's great. That's for sure. So how I train is to kind of absorb great acting, great art, to study as much as I can, and I train it by repeating it. I train it by expressing it, and also working with my students, with my clients, working every day on set, experimenting a lot, trying to make as many mistakes as I can, and rush into some pitfalls, and realizing what's working in front of the camera and whatnot. So also taking some risks, I guess, right? After acquiring information, you need to kind of transform that information and put into action. Otherwise, it's just a nice construct of your mind, but it doesn't become tangible. And do you, Kleine Ida asked again, do you as an actor change the lines you have to perform from time to time? Yes, I do a lot, because you just spoke about being spontaneous. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a great question. Yes, I do a lot. I change the lines all the time. Um, when I'm involved in certain projects where I know that the director is heavily relating on the exact repetition of the lines that the author has given us. Talking about Shakespeare sometimes, or even when the director has wrote a piece or the screenplay, then sometimes he wants the exact execution of the lines he wrote down previously. So what I do when I need to follow the lines exactly as they are written down by the author, when I need to do that, what I do is I improvise beforehand. I kind of explore all the ways you could say that line, that phrase, that sentence, where you can go into different directions and what it could also mean. And then I come back to the original line that is scripted that I need to say exactly in that manner. And I kind of see what new information, what new facet, what new nuance I can bring to the table. And it comes down to this line where I feel like, okay, now I've explored the boundary. Now I know exactly what kind of essence this line actually carries and what it tells me. And I feel comfortable about saying it in exactly this manner. But if it's not necessary, I change the lines a lot, and I make them not more comfortable. Sometimes I even choose a more difficult path. Like sometimes I add words, or I make expressions even more complicated. Um, if I feel that suits the rhythm more, if I feel that suits the momentum of the character in this scene, in this very moment more, then I change it and kind of transform it and morph it as much as I can, if I have the liberty and the freedom to do so. If not, I do it beforehand, and then I say it exactly as they are scripted. It really depends, but usually I love to be spontaneous and improvise as much as I can, because usually the author has a view, and it's not to be discrediting his work at all. I highly estimate great writers, great authors, great screenplay writers. It's an incredible craft that lies behind writing and creating stories and storytelling. We are storytellers. Art is a storyteller. Actors are storytellers. So I had to respect the work of the author, but he has a subjective view of the character. Once I put that into action, once I create the character, something else happens. That happens just in the moment, just for the actor. It's not the ego that is talking here. It's just a situation that the author can explore beforehand, because usually he's not an actor. So when you are putting the words into action, sometimes you realize something is missing. Something is not working for me personally. On my human level, as the condition of the character in this very moment to be truthful. So I need to add or change, transform something in order to make it more fluid, more liquid, more natural and authentic, and more rhythm based, so I can really put some steam behind it. It becomes more entertaining, because in the end, it's not a book, it's not a novel, it's something that needs to be shown, right? So it needs to be entertaining, if that really answers your question. But let's get back. What is art? Because if you look at the movies of 2021, let me know in the comment section below, by the way, what your favorites movie were of this year, and what kind of movies impressed you the most, and what kind of movies maybe disappointed you the most. I saw some good movies this year. I saw a couple of great movies, maybe 1, 2 great movies where there was a great idea behind, or the expression was just magnificent and beautiful. Overall, of course, right now the situation is difficult to judge, because so many movies are on hold, so many productions are on hold because of the of the current crisis. So it's not the regular, it's not the regular way movies are coming out. It's not the regular way we're going to the movies and perceiving movies. So it's really hard to judge right now the material that's coming out. Nonetheless, there are many productions running, and there is a lot of work out there. This is also a reason why we're doing this a live show today, because I want to emphasize the fact that we are shooting like crazy. Entertainment industry is shooting like crazy all over the globe, and there are so many job opportunities, so many great projects you can be involved. So don't miss out on that one. By the way, there's a new video series coming up. I can announce that, right? I can do that today. It's almost the last day of the year. There will be acting in English coming up. It's something that I hold very dearly and that I cherish a lot, acting in English, because it's something that pretty much was my big bang in terms of becoming a coach, because it just helped in the beginning. In the principle of the COACHMC studio, I was just helping out Italian actors with their English pronunciation. I was just looking for the spelling, the pronunciation, and I was just giving them some tips and some tricks on how to learn English lines way quicker, because in Italy there is a huge amount. There's a big volume of international work happening every year, and there's a huge demand for Italian actors, local actors that need to be involved because of the tax regulations. So the production company receives tax benefits from hiring local actors. And in Italy, since there are so many international productions, big productions, movie productions, series productions going on, there is a big demand for English-speaking local actors. So that's how the COACHMC studio started, in helping people out with their English pronunciation. And of course, we started also working artistically and together, and then it kind of evolved in becoming a coach on 360 degrees, if you want to call it so. So acting in English is a video series that I hold dear. It's coming up. I will launch maybe the first of the year. Yeah, it's going to be the 1st of January. And I'm so excited about that, because that really was the cornerstone. That was the cornerstone, the foundation of the COACHMC studio. And I want to emphasize the fact how important acting in English is, because it's a skill. It's a side skill. It's a way of making money, learning to know new projects, of getting to know great people, and getting involved in many different things outside of your local area. So it's a great opportunity to make your acting life richer, to gain more momentum, and to broaden your spectrum, to widen your horizon. And the thing is, when we're talking about the movies that we're seeing, besides the current situation, we always remember the movies that triggered emotionally something inside of us. And usually, of course, we can be more related or less related to certain topics, talking about science fiction movies or fantasy movies. But usually, when movies are made based on the idea of creating great art for the audience, these movies we will remember. doesn't matter if we are totally related to the topic, or if we are fans or not of certain characters or not. We get involved as soon as the movie is made on the basis of creating great art, as soon as it develops a language for itself, and it's 3 4 dimensional all of the sudden. It's not just, okay, I get entertained. It's a flat wonderful story. Sometimes that's good too, and legitimate, necessary too, to just watch like a great action flick without like too much deeper meaning, where you just have great dialogues. By the way, that can be art as well, because there are so many action movies that are just garbage because dialogues are not working, characters are not deep enough, and the interaction between the roles is just not, there is no chemistry. So even on a very simple level, you need to involve art when we're talking about acting. And I see this tendency when I'm watching movies nowadays, because there is such an amount of movies. Also, maybe we need an immediate diet. Maybe we need to turn down our appetite a little bit and just watch periodically and more kind of focused, and eliminate superfluous minutes, right? Because maybe we're not even able to judge correctly anymore what a good movie actually is, because we're watching so much. We have our cellular phones, our tablets, our computers, our movie screens, our home theaters. So maybe we should reduce our minutes in front of the screen so we can enjoy good content again. But I have the feeling that it's getting a bit sloppy when it comes down to art, to creating great characters, to really understand um, the the sedimentation of the character, of the role, of what the actor is trying to portray and to show, and to give as many nuances and edges and facets to that figure, so it becomes really compelling and interesting following this character, and being also invested in that story and following that story, because it's just amazing and entertaining to watch. And I see that less and less, because I have the feeling that um yeah, and I think that's also generational. I think it's kind of evolving into a new stream, where you need some time and you need to make some failures, and then you realize, okay, um, let's get back on track. And so quality needs also to learn through the failures. And I feel there has been a great generation of screenplay writers, of great movie directors, that have given their best shots in the 90s, and now there's a new generation coming up, and they need some time to evolve, some progress. And the same thing is true also for the screenwriters, and that's a great and magnificent. It's, I don't mean that in a polemic way or in an evil way. I just mean it needs some time to evolve and to progress, to create that fundament, that sediment of great culture, so it can really blossom up into a flower, into a plant that is magnificent to watch, it is great to watch, it is compelling to watch. And right now, a lot of movies lack that intensity, that tension, and that fertility, but I think it will come. We need to talk about art. But first of all, let's answer a quick question. um, Annie Boo, thank you so much. She's asking, do you like to use rhymes during acting? um, Yes, a lot. I mean, I think it's sometimes great to kind of extrapolate a monologue, to put it on a new sheet of paper, and to look at this monologue like it would be a song, and then to use rhymes to create a song for this monologue, to get a new perspective, a new way of looking at this monologue, and it becomes less scary, and you end pressurize the process a little bit, especially when we're talking about yeah, heavy poetic stuff, like Shakespeare, like Miller, like many great poets and authors that have an emphasis on a poetic and dramatic and beautiful and lavish language. Sometimes it's great to extrapolate them from that context, because we as actors, we love to put as much emphasis and beauty and strength into heavy words, into great lines, into beautiful sentences. Sometimes we need to unload, though, the whole ship, otherwise it becomes too full and too packed, and then we don't really understand the message behind it and what the story actually is. So it kind of works in both ways. Rhyming is a great way to construct that, to put an emphasis on different things, to unload the pressure of a certain monologue, or to give a certain spice to a monologue that was lacking beforehand, something that is still missing, put some rhymes into it, and then you see, maybe this is a new color that kind of works well with this, and then I can use it afterwards. Kleine Ida asks a bit of off topic. Don't worry, we love off topic when it's talking about art. How do you cope with the lines from yesterday? Because you need to learn new ones every day. How do you not get confused? Well, in a way, I'm not really learning them, because I get rid of them so quickly that it's just they are there to perform on the moment. I work with them very quickly and manipulate them to kind of discover something else about them. And once I recorded the lines, once I've repped the scene, I discard them immediately from my mental palace, so they fall out the roster. So, what is art? How can we put art back into the game? What is the definition of art for yourself? Like, let me know, like I said before. But the interesting thing is, if we go to like a regular dictionary and we just look at the definition of what art is, already that can give us so many hints on what we can do to improve our acting experience and our acting performance. It's quite remarkable. So I think this is Bruce Webster's dictionary, where I found the definition that art is something that is created with imagination and skill, and that is beautiful, or that expresses important ideas or feelings. So again, something that is created with imagination and skill, right? So we have the craftsmanship, the structure that I talked before, the repetition that is now our muscle memory, but then the imagination comes also and kicks in. So we need that structure beforehand, and now we can build up that beautiful cathedral. Now we can go crazy with our colors, like the Sixtine Chapel, and paint something that is unspoken of, right? Unheard of before. And that expresses important ideas and or feelings. I want to get close to the word idea just for a second, because that is such an intrinsic part of what we're trying to convey in today's live session. And by the way, if you haven't so far subscribed to the COACHMC studio, of course, that makes this whole endeavor worth it. What is an idea? Look, the very interesting thing about the word idea, it's sort of, it comes naturally. You associate an idea with illumination, with something that is radiant, something that emits light, right? Like a light bulb. It goes on. It's like, I got an idea, right? Something hits my mind like a lightning, right? This is something that, wow, is new, right? So everything that is fresh and new, something that illuminates, something that it puts on the light and sheds light into the darkness, that kind of chases the darkness away, that illuminates the space, the room. When I have an idea, I see, right? I see. I see. Now I understand, because I got illuminated, right? Little side note here: the ancient Sumerians, their gods, they were called Ilus, right? And one of their mythological books, and one of their creational books, they explain that their gods, Sumerians, old ancient Mesopotamian, it's a very, we're talking about 6000 BC here, right? It's Persian Gulf, it's southern Iraq, and the Sumerians were first inventors of many things that we call civilization today, right? They were very enlightened people. They were very smart people, and they were using those cylinders to communicate, and the cuneiform writings that they used, it was like art, right? This very intrinsic, very small cylinder that was giving out to kind of all the regions and all the other cities in Sumer, to kind of communicate the will of the king and the new regulations and the rules and the laws that had to be followed by all the populations. That happened through art, that communication. And these people, these Sumerians, they were calling gods Ilus, Il, El, right? So the idea is the illumination. So you have something godlike inside of yourself, right? Without getting too religious and philosophical here. inside of yourself, when you open up that chamber, when you let the light in, when you illuminate the room, when you see the space in front of yourself, when you imagine what's going on, illumination, imagination, all these words, they're kind of intersected, they're kind of intertwined with each other, the idea, right? So art is something that is created with imagination and skill, and that is beautiful, or that expresses important ideas, right? Important illuminations, important new concepts, or feelings, emotions. It's what we got inside. And usually, when we got a new idea, when we illuminate the room, that happens with emotion. We come into the room with intention to say something. I always say that also to myself, even, right? When we're getting into the audition, there is a reason for it. I get into that room because I want to say something, or even say nothing, because that can be a very powerful and very loud statement too. If we don't say anything, right, to our enemy or to our family members or in the scene, there is a reason for that too. Actually, we're talking louder than most of the people when we're not saying anything. But usually the principle is clear, right? There is communication of ideas. That's art, of feelings, of important concepts, of things that are beautiful. And beautiful means that it's worked, that you have put many, many layers on top of each other. Again, staying with the old ancient people and culture and civilizations that were building, that were stacking stones on top of each other to create pyramids, right? That is a magnificent repetition, right? Getting closer and closer and closer to the summit point, to really show on that very focused little tip, on that tip of the pyramid, to show the whole world, right, what your ideas are, to communicate your art. And in a way, that's what we're doing as actors. Sorry for getting a little bit off track here, but it's just, art has so many ways to be explained. And right away, when we're starting with that very singular, very schematic kind of explanation that we find in the dictionary already, that kind of opens up, it kind of pushes the boundaries already, and opens up the world, and to a new dimension of how we imagine art, of how we perceive art. So every time you get called to action for a big audition, when you are performing as an actor, when you're getting to your studio lot, ask yourself this: have you created something with your imagination? Are you doing something beautiful? Are you about to express important ideas or great feelings? Because already that, like, to ask yourself that is way more helpful to kind of in ways that you can't imagine right now, to really portray a realistic and crisp character that really entertains people, right, and pulls them into their seats, and now they're eager to watch what's coming up. So before I go to the second definition, let's jump to a few questions. Annie Boo, Wark Tech, Patrick Tate, Wark Tech, Arc Tech. Oh, there's some interesting gameplay going on with the words. Arc Tech, yeah, that's very. I get the notion where you want to go with this. Yeah, everything is art. That was also a way of displaying it in a way, maybe more of a tool of legitimizing power and rule. And that is, of course, like a negative notion in a way, or let's say a darker notion, because of course, like, art is displaying the human condition and the language of the universe. It can be dark and can be light sometimes. It's just a matter of coming back to yourself. Also, when you're playing a mean character, or let's say a character that has, nefarious intentions throughout the play or throughout the monologue, because he wants to hurt or manipulate or control people in a way that it's not healthy, you have to explain that character to yourself. You have to defend that character. The important thing is you do that as thoroughly as you can, and then you come back to yourself and you say, "Well, interesting. That was a notion of me I didn't know beforehand, maybe, and that I'm not eager to explore continuously or regularly. But hey, for the sake of the training, of the exercise, of giving life to that imagined character, that was a great way of showing myself of all the things that can go potentially wrong." So it can be also a great lesson to play like mean characters sometimes. Another question from Annie Boo. I'm so excited about your questions. Thank you so much, guys. Do you have any life hacks how to unblock yourself? I mean, as you know, I write poems and stories. Yeah, I know, and funny speeches. I love them, by the way. Give me more. But sometimes I have no ideas at all how to go on. How can I unblock myself? What I think throughout this show, I'm gonna read out loud some quotes throughout the ages that have been made on art, and I think that will tell you a lot on how to do that. Basically, it's just the passion of doing the work because of the work's sake, because you just love doing it. And it's not about getting good or better or perfect or a master or becoming the greatest of all times. It's the sake is for, for the art's sake, because you just love to do it. And then automatically, once you love to do it, you don't judge yourself, so there is no blocking or unblocking going on. Sometimes it's more output. We have oscillations as human beings. Sometimes it's less output, and that's okay too. Like I said before, if we look back at our year, like through the goggles of entertainment industry, through the goggles of great movies that have been made and that have been shown to us, like I said before, maybe not all of the movies were so great as I hope they turn out to be. As I sometimes products are not hitting the mark as much as you wish for, but that's okay. That's oscillation too. That's the quality of the output too. Like even the greatest studios on planet Earth with the greatest budget on planet Earth, sometimes they make miserable mistakes, or sometimes their products, even though they're expensive, are not entertaining. Not in my opinion. I'm not judging about all of them. I'm just saying, sometimes even the greatest make hilarious mistakes. So and they don't judge themselves, so why should you do it, right? So just go on and go on and go on, and sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's great quality, sometimes you can work a little bit more on it. It doesn't really matter. It matters that you're doing it, that you're embracing the process and enjoying what you're doing. Hello. Hey, Serbia lady. It's so great to have you here. It's little community today, almost at the end of the year. Enjoying this very much. So, again, another definition: what is art? What is great acting? It's, again, in the dictionary. I find it very fascinating how simple it can sometimes be, broken down. Works that are created by artists that are created to be beautiful. That's it. And since they're beautiful, they must be created by artists. Even though, what is an artist, right? It's somebody that has just created something beautiful. So the product confirms the producer, and the producer confirms the product, right? Both legitimize themselves equally. You don't have to be a super and marvelously skilled and trained actor to perform great. Sometimes you need that just act of courage of doing something outstanding, outlandish, and crazy in that moment. And that reveals itself to be pretty fun and pretty entertaining. To repeat that process over and over again, though, I feel you must have some more skills and some more training. But it's true. Once you create something beautiful, you're an artist. For that moment, these 15 minutes of fame, they just belong to you, like the famous Andy Warhol once said. And he, oh my God, he was a great artist too. Pop art, you might think of it what you want, but in a way, it's a great new way of expressing and communicating some new ideas and great, beautiful concepts, right? So why not? What is art? It's a skill acquired by experience, study, or observation. It's one of my most favorite words, right? Somebody who follows the channel might know that observation is one of my most favorite words. Yeah, you need to observe a lot. Art goes through that concept of observing, because you observe and you observe what is beautiful to you, what is great acting to you, what is a great movie according to your taste, to your feelings, to your sensation. That's the beauty of art. It's subjective, right? Everybody has a different opinion, a different take, a different tendency of whether liking or not liking something. Again, we are placed into a mechanical system right from birth, you might say, right? We go to kindergarten where we need to behave, we need to go to school, we need to go to college and university, we need to repeat a lot of information, we need to function at work, when we're dealing with administration affairs and all that. When we're traveling, we have all these regulations, all these laws, all these expiration dates. We need to answer to all these mechanical requirements of the modern world. And at the same time, we need to be free and loose and transparent and joyful when we're expressing our art, and completely also, yeah, without boundaries, no holds barred, right? Here, there are no restraints. Here, there are many restraints. How can both concepts work together? And that's the difficulty. And a lot of times when I talk to my clients before we get on with the beautiful quotes that I brought in today, a lot of times, me myself, of course, included in this, we are so egocentric, right? Which is, again, it's legitimate. I'm not judging here, but we are egocentric. We need to be, right? Everything needs to be kind of tailored around, like those rings of Saturn, like, put around our system so we can, do all the things that are required by us throughout the year. So we are so very much egocentric, right? In the way we function, the way we work. We need to attract things, we need to do and function and bring in the power and great display of abilities all the time, right? And at the same time, having the consciousness that we are egocentric, we need to let go when we're talking about art, and not be judgmental about what we're doing, and not trying to restrain and control and manipulate everything that we're doing, and trusting our senses, our intuition, and our skill that we've required throughout the ages and the repetition, that things will blossom up quite organically without us having the tendency of over controlling and helicoptering all time around our display of abilities, when it comes down to addition, to self tape, or when it comes down to shooting in front of the camera or being on stage. When it comes down to acting, sometimes this mechanical system we're involved in the whole time kind of takes control a little bit too much over our rhythm and the way we're performing and showing our artistic abilities. And that needs to be reduced in that moment. And that transition, right? It's like a DJ in the club, right? When he's pitching from one record to the other, when he's switching from one record to the other, that transition needs to be very smooth. You can do it very fast if you can, of course, but that's a cut break, a break cut, and that isn't always suitable, because you need time to morph yourself into the other character. So you need to learn how to detach yourself from these mechanical requirements throughout the year, throughout your life. And art is a great catalyst to do that. Art is a magnificent way of cutting off the outer world and going into the inner world, right? So, what is art? It's the conscious use of skill and creative imagination, especially in the production of aesthetic objects. Wow. So you're consciously using your skills that were acquired through the mechanical process of repetition, but you're consciously using them. You're not obeying them blindly like you're doing throughout your daily schedule, based on your automatisms and your chores and all the things that you need to do. No, you're consciously using some of those repetitional skills, of those mechanical skills, and you put them into a creative imagination bubble, right? Into this pocket of creativity, especially when we're talking about the production of aesthetic objects, right? Like a movie can be a very aesthetic object. So you're putting together all the frames, all the scenes, then you're editing out what's superfluous, and then you're adding music, you're adding grading, you're adding special effects, you're adding some little tricks here and there to make this whole thing an aesthetic visual product, something that is perceivable and beautiful to watch. And that again is art. Art is the way of arranging mechanical things in an organic form, if you like to call it so. Even our body is, under certain mathematical regulations, right? There are many procedures going on in our body that are highly technical and almost mechanical, thinking about our brain, our heart, all the impulses that we need, the blood that is pumping throughout every minute, throughout our year, throughout our lives. There are so many things that you can say are mechanical, when we're talking about our body in itself. But then again, our body expresses things that are totally unmechanical, totally free and loose of that, without those restraints and chains. And that is beautiful again, right? When athleticism, in a way, can be also art, right? Sometimes an athlete he kind of he does things that are unexpected, that are incredible, that are unheard of. Like talking about Olympic Games, Usain Bolt, right? Running faster than anyone has done in the history of humankind in such a, elegant, aesthetically pleasant way, with just a flawless silk-like continuity of movements and actions. It's just incredible. That to me is art too, right? It can be art because in a way it's perceivable by humankind and inspires a lot of people, and a lot of people might change their life after watching a race like that and saying, I want to become this person, I want to become as him, like an athlete like him. And the whole training as the mechanical process, but then when it comes down to executing on the final day of the Olympics, of any tournament, then it becomes art, because then it kind of, it's no holds barred. Then it's just up to him, right? Up to that person, up to the creator, up to the artist, to the actress in that moment to kind of unveil, right? To disclose her full potential. And that's the beauty of art. So here we have the conscious use of that training and creative imagination. And creative imagination is a bit foggy. It sounds beautiful, but if you really think of it, it's a bit foggy. We have to kind of condense that down a little bit and make it even clearer and sharper, I think, for the audience. What does that mean, creative imagination? Because there is one thing. I can imagine a room, I can imagine a space, I can, switch on the light, I can turn on the light, and now I see. But that's it's not necessarily creative. But what I do now, once I got the room, once I got the space fully mapped out, or at least I have a pretty good idea of what's going on in that space, now I can go sideways. Now I can move in all the directions. No restraints. I don't need to follow rules. There are certain rules, but one rule is the one that defies all the other rules, and that is to be amazing. That is to have an amazing storytelling process as an actor. So you can forget all of the rules. If you have an amazing storytelling process, that can be laid down, that can be standing up, running from one edge of the stage to the other, or just doing whatever, right? If it feels right, if it's organically, if it's truthfully corresponding to your momentum in that very moment of your life, then it becomes art and beautiful to watch. So again, creative imagination means illuminate the room, turn on the light, but then don't just use the room in a static way. Just, flip the whole paradigm around. Do whatever you can with that room. Shake things up, and then, bring everything into order, and then turn off the light, and then exit the room, and then see what people have to say. But once you turn on the light, then it's necessary to do something outstanding, to be a magnificent storyteller with all of your abilities, all of your instruments that you've acquired before. So that is creative imagination, turning on with some ideas and then flipping the paradigm and being courageous. Creativity means, in a way, to be courageous, to not be concerned about the outcome so much, but being more concerned of being truthful in that moment. And whatever comes out in that very moment, it's no holds barred, no judgment about that. Just execute that, and then you will see what the outcome is at the end. So creative means to be courageous about your choices, making big decisions, risking something, and of course, aiming for the failure, aiming for a mistake, so you can learn even more and be better and better and better and better over time. Create a sense of beauty when you're acting. And that doesn't mean that everything needs to be gracious and silk-like and flawless. And your beauty, your definition of beauty, create that sense. What is the sense of beauty of that scene? Even like sitting symmetrically and just saying something, holding a monologue for 2 minutes straight without moving too much, and just focusing on the transmission, on the clarity, on the precision, and the sharpness of the words, and the subliminal messages you want to send out with little tweaks here and there. That can be a great delivery as well. That is a sense of beauty as well, because you stayed there, you've condensed everything, you held everything together, all the energies, right? That can be great too. And going crazy and beating up the place, if it makes sense, if it really follows the character, that can be great too. So that creative imagination, that is what happens when we are creating an aesthetic pleasant object, something that pleases us, but not because it needs to bow down in front of us, something that pleases us, something that makes sense, that pleases our taste. It's like eating. And before I go on with some other quotes, cooking, it's a big passion of mine. I love to cook. I'm from southern Italy, so cooking for us is kind of, part of our existence. I also run a restaurant with my mom. Actually, she runs the place. I'm more of, the nice facade that talks and serves people and kind of does the marketing. But now we're running this place for 14 years, and I've realized that cooking, has a lot to do with acting and art in itself too, right? Because acting can be very sophisticating and complicated. You can do a lot of crazy things. You can do a lot of background work and research work and secondary literature, and you can accumulate a lot of knowledge and a deeper sense of what the character likes to impersonate. And that is super important. All these ramifications and different sedimentations they're like layers. You can anthropologically, you put them together, and then you have this beautiful fossil. Then you can exhibit and let people see. But like the fossil, sometimes all that work can be a bit motionless and meaningless if it's just the work of the mind and not also of the body. If both elements are not working well with each other, then it becomes just, a logical, rational gameplay, and it's not really art, because art touches us, like we said, throughout, because of the feelings it creates, because of the feelings it emanates. So I guess what I want to say is, when you're looking at big Michelin star chefs, right, they are creating these outstanding dishes, these incredible plates, but they put an emphasis first and foremost on the ingredients themselves, because throughout their studies they've realized one thing for sure: you can put so much different work and different labor into little procedures, on the left, on the right of the main course that you are preparing as a chef, as a cook, right? You can work so much on little details and on the sauce, and a little bit here and a little bit there, and then create an outstanding, also visual object, and beautiful to watch when you serve it on a plate. But in the end, it's just about the experience of eating something great. And that can be a very simple sauce, right? Sometimes we stratify ourselves too much with the details, and we get lost a little bit with too much information. Sometimes look back at the essence of what is this dish trying to tell people, right? What is the mission here behind? What can I perceive from that dish? What is the first communication, the first message that I get from a great plate, a great dish of food that is created? Sometimes simplicity is king, sometimes less is more. Occupy yourself with creating a very high quality experience with all the singular ingredients that you're using, by focusing on what the main intention actually is, instead of getting lost with too many side notes and side nuances and tastes that are not really adding anything substantial to the main course, right? The context is always very important on how you present everything, but the main plate, the essence, needs to be clear and sharp and simple in the beginning. So art can be, of course, very obfuscated and full of information and details, and like acting can be, like there are some great actors that are very versatile and putting a lot of layers in their performance, a lot of subliminal messages, all great to watch. But sometimes it's too artificial. Sometimes I just want to get involved and impacted by the feelings, by the emotions. They need to be direct. And cooking and acting, sometimes they have a lot of similarities. There are a lot of parallels between both of them. So here is Anibu that says, Michael Zucraft. Hello. What's up, man? Thanks so much for joining the channel. Subscribe if you haven't so far, and smash the like. Of course, also the bell so you get notified every time, because small channels sometimes they have kind of difficulties of getting through the jungle of big channels when they're publishing their videos. So if you haven't smashed the bell, sometimes you don't get even notified that we're grinding out a new video. So make sure to do that, so you know every time we publish a new video on YouTube. That would be also great to make sure that the algorithm knows that this content here is valuable to you guys. So smash the bell as well. Sometimes something that I noticed during work, when I love what I do and what I say, and when the method or exercise I use pleases me, it's also more interesting and fun for my patients. It's contagious. Sure, absolutely. The more you believe into the product, the more fun you have while doing it, while displaying it, while deploying it, the more fun your audience will have, for sure. I'm sorry for talking so much. No, this is a chat. It's there to communicate absolute whatever you got on your mind. So please, no holds barred. So in the ancient times, because many people think like acting does, it comes from the ancient times, from ancient Greeks and even further than that. So they must have loved art, right? They must have loved acting. Actually, they didn't that much, like Plato and and all of his companions. They weren't big fans of art and actors in itself. They were actually masking the actors with static masks. They were dressing them up all the same, besides a few um, uh, besides a few different kind of actors that had a different role that were kind of exemplified in a different color. But otherwise, pretty much everybody was dressed the same. Everybody was wearing a mask. So they were all hiding behind the mask and just saying, just the words were resonating with the audience. Because the ancient Greeks, they believed that art is just a copy of the copy, right? It's just the universe is the greatest art. Then we try to understand it. If we try to copy something that we thought, which is already is a copy of the greater copy, which is the universe, because the universe is just the expression of the magnificence of the eternal beauty and the perfection of God itself. So it's just a third copy. It's not necessary. So art was very institutionalized, and theater plays were institutionalized, and they were just the mere mimesis, right? They were mimicking certain concepts, repeating them just to make them clear, and not because of beauty in itself or because of showing graciousness or anything else that should be fancy or inspirational. It was more the codex of how we should, as human beings back in the days, behave, and how we should stay together as a community, and what the great concepts of the gods were. But they were not believing in acting as an art form that much. That came actually later. So it's interesting to see that art and acting on all those various stages of human development and progress and evolution meant something else for the various stages. And all the stages art went through with the progress of humankind, it always meant something different. So back in the days, it was just making clear what the rules are, right, and stating what the author had to say. The author had to say without involving too much without involving the ego that much. And then later, it became way later. It started to become something more that should be also entertaining and beautiful and aesthetically pleasant to watch, right? So that evolution is the same evolution humankind had. First, we had to just, follow the rules, according to what was going on in our environment. Before we had the Industrial Revolution, before we had monarchies, before we went through all these different progresses of human development, we were just executing, we were just living, we were just functioning. And then we started adapting to our environment. Then we came closer to each other, we expanded, we became more and more, we became more organized, our tools became more stratified, more specialized. We started creating cities, laws, rules, adjustments, civilization. So throughout the ages, art was our companion, but to us, it was meaning always something different. And that was always the expression of the time. And that is so beautiful. And there is no exception to that fact. If you look at the philosophers from more recent times, like to jump into like the 18th, 19th century, if you look at Heidegger or Hegel, Heidegger said that art should be truthful. It should be truth. And isn't that funny? Because when we're talking about being actors, we need to be truthful. We always emphasize the fact that it needs to be truthful and authentic. We just need to say our truth, right? We just need to say what we're here for, what we're aiming at, what drives us, what our motivations are. So it's kind of interesting that, coming back full circle, we're going through these various observations of art, but in the end, it's just a way of communicating. Again, it's a storytelling process. That's what we do here at the COACHMC studio too, right? We are storytelling what the craft is all about, based on my actual experience as an actor, that while I shoot every day, based on my experience as a coach for over 10 years now, and based on all the resources I'm getting into my system. It's always changing a little bit, because of course it's subjective, but the mission is always just to tell great stories and to adjust accordingly to times, our instruments a little bit, and sharpen the here and there, and remind ourselves what this is actually about. So whether you're an actor, an entertainer, performer, the CoachMC studio is there to inspire you always to create new art, to be uniquely prepared, and then to have a remarkable output every time you get called to action. It doesn't mean that you will always book the job, always nail the audition, always be on point, always be perfect, but you will be truthful to your intention, to your tendency of expressing. And Heidegger said the same, believe it or not. It's pretty crazy. And Hegel said art is there to create a deeper sense of reality. And actually, let me just read out this whole quote, even if it's a bit longer, because I think it's amazing. Um, Thinking about Hegel, knowing him a little bit better, and Heidegger, all these, very, in a way, um, very restrict philosophers that were all focusing on small niches of the existence. So when they were talking about art, of all of the sudden, you might be surprised of how desperately they were looking for giving a truthful and liberal expression to what's not expressible, in a way, because art is expressing just a little chunk, a little fragment of something that is so much deeper, so much bigger, that is actually unexpressible. And that's the beauty of it, because that grows as well as our expression grows, and we can always learn and get a feedback loop from that, and soak from that, and use that energy to kind of manifest and catalyze our emotions, our ideas, our imagination. So Hegel said the notion of truth in art is not a matter of accurate representation in an empirical way, but art can express a deeper sense of reality and convey a certain knowledge. A certain knowledge. Again, it's like a slightly blurry expression here. We will dive into that in a second, a little bit deeper into that in a second. But it's just, as a phrase, that's beautiful. Again, the notion of truth in art is not a matter of accurate representation. Again, get away from your egocentric way that uh, of judging yourself and controlling everything. It's not about being 100% perfect and super accurate. Sometimes too many ingredients can just water down the experience, actually, instead of emphasizing and concentrating. And sometimes less ingredients make more impact because they're on a high quality standard, instead of a lot of ingredients that actually don't amalgamate with each other, and then they don't make sense, and actually they water down the whole product even more, instead of giving it more sharpness and clarity. So the notion of truth in art is not the accurate representation in an empirical way. We're not scientists, we're not professors, we don't need to prove a formula. Art is an expression of a deeper sense of reality, a deeper. So it's not really happening here. It's happening down there in our guts. It's about intuition, about imagination, about instincts, about a sixth sense, about perceiving something that is not written, that is written between the lines, right? That's so magnificent about art. It's a deeper sense of reality and convey a certain knowledge. And that's, I want to kind of hold on to that for a second. If you think about Joseph Campbell and A Hero with a Thousand Faces, going back to the concept that acting was also shown in antique theaters, but in ancient Greece and Rome, but it wasn't the same experience as it is today, and it didn't mean the same thing as it as it means right now. So that certain knowledge, that mythological knowledge, that unknown, not completely be sure of what kind of territory I'm moving in here, right? When we're talking about the mysterious craft of feeling things that are not visible, but they're still in the room. We are also leaving our mark, leaving our energy, leaving our trace. That is perceivable by other human beings. We're leaving that imagined life, right? That impression, right? It comes from that illuminous act of having that idea and portraying that and bringing that forward. So that's certain knowledge that you have to acquire for yourself. It can be completely different. It can be always something completely different. But it's a certain knowledge, certain things that drive you, that will drive you as an artist, as an actor. That's certain knowledge about where this all comes from. That is so important because it puts down a layer that is unconfoundable, truthful, even though we can't explain it fully and we don't have all the empirical evidence about it. And that's what's so magnificent about it, because it kind of stays in between. It stays in between the worlds, but it's still something that drives us physically and tangibly. And so again, comes from a mechanical world, but then it goes into a more of an ephemeral, a more metaphysical, spiritual world. And both worlds can work and coexist with each other, as we can see in art, and we perceive with great acting. Picasso once said, that is beautiful, our little rebel, our Spanish rebel, art is a lie. And it makes us realize the truth, at least the truth that is given us to understand, right? There are certain concepts that were given to us, right? We need to understand them. We need to accept them as truth. And now we need to work our way around and make it a bit more special. Otherwise, it's too hard to bear. So we give art the ability to demonstrate something that is just happening because it's imagined, right? A scene is just an imagined, is just an imagined moment of the author. It's not really happening. It's a lie. It's not reality. But in that lie reality, in that manifested imagined reality, we can explore the boundaries and search for the truth. So it makes us understand the truth, the real truth, if we want to call it real truth. That's very philosophical, but we do it by lying, right? By putting ourselves into a situation that is artificial and not real. Beautiful concept here by Picasso. He also said, you have to steal from the best, from the masters. You are allowed, you need to steal as an artist, right? So if you see a great actor, if you see a great movie, steal as much as you can, transform it for yourself and show it again. In this way, it stays alive, right? So it's a chain. Paul Klee, a famous German painter, said, art does not reproduce the visible, it makes visible. I don't want to reproduce something. Again, that goes back also to Hegel, to the philosopher, who said it's not in the accurate representation in an empirical way. It's not there to reproduce the visible 100%, but it makes things visible. It makes you visible, right? So that's a privilege. Again, looking back at this crazy year, that's why we're doing the show now for 1 hour and 17 minutes. And I'm so proud you guys are still hanging in there. And we need to wrap this up soon, but still I want to go through a few notes but first and foremost I want to talk about this. Like, when we're looking back at this year and we're planning our future projects and we understand ourselves as actors, as artists, as human beings that are eager to communicate their inner their inner lives, their inner worlds to the audience, right? If we look at that and say it makes us visible, it makes us perceivable, we give ourselves the right to be visible through art. We give ourselves, finally we give ourselves the right agent, the right medium to make ourselves and our ideas and our feelings visible, to not be invisible. As artists, as actors, we need to be visible. We need to take the stage. Our, like Elia Kazan said, our rightful place on the stage, right? And I will be myself. I will be heard. I will be myself means I will be visible, perceivable, and vulnerable. Of course, I have the feeling that so many artists nowadays, they want to be safe. They want to play it safe. They don't want to be vulnerable anymore. I understand. I mean, hard times, it's always hard. We need to find, okay, but that's that's the beauty of art, is being vulnerable in that moment while you're playing out the lie to make reality more truthful and understandable, like Picasso said. So again, it makes it art defines the very existence you're currently inhabiting, right? Currently your body is inhabited by your existence, by your spirit, by your light, by your imagination. Now all this, you can make it visible. Now you can tell people. Now there is a medium, there is an agent that you can deploy to make that transformation come true. And that is a privilege. Don't complain. Make it happen. You're ready to perform since the day you were born. So use it. Don't wait. It's just a privilege to be part of art. Use art smart. Use art to perfectionize your tools in an artistic way, of course. And what I mean by that is to perfectionize your tools, not as a repetition, not as this mechanical process. Yes, the repetition is good to a certain point because your brain needs to understand that this is valuable to you. And usually you do that by putting a lot of work, a lot of, a bigger volume of work into something that shows your brain, okay, this is important. So it focuses more whenever you're doing that. And then the muscle memory kicks in, and then the whole thing becomes automatic and natural and organic over time. But art is there to be manifested, to be lived, to be used, to be displayed, to do beautiful things. That is a privilege. It's not something that we should be afraid of or scared of, that we should be timid. I have no right to be timid, like Elia Kazan said in The Actor's Vow, 1947. I think it was written. So it's the reason we're there. There is no complaining involved. Yeah, somebody earns more money. Okay. Somebody makes better movies. Okay. Somebody has more auditions. Okay. But still, you can do a lot for yourself to do that. That's why we're doing this video today, because I want to encourage you to use your art to sharpen your tools. And not, again, it's so hard to say, yeah, how can I deploy art to make myself better? How can I use art smart? Because art means there are no real boundaries. Art doesn't mean that you have to repeat in the same obsolete, nonsensical way every day in, day out. It means that you can be also totally creative on how you exercise, where you rehearse, and how you do that, how you train your voice, your words, your knowledge, how you get reference work into your system, how you observe people when you do that. And by doing that in a way that suits you the most, and creating that perfect moment for yourself where you avoid all deflections, all distractions, where you put yourself into the position of creating a great habit, a great ritual whenever you want to deploy and create art, that already is an artistic behavior, because you're focusing your previous actions, you're centering your, focusing on creating something that then can be executed. So the preparation in itself, if you're greatly prepared, then you can execute in a magnificent way. If you're poorly prepared, then of course you will have also a poor output. And the preparation itself is art. You can mechanically prepare something, then have an artistic behavior. All of a sudden it is spontaneous and unbelievable and amazing. Even your preparation needs to be very skillful and artful and creative, because the better you're prepared and the more notions you have, the greater your output will be. And the more unexpected things you do while you're preparing yourself, and the more artistic you become while preparing yourself for the preparation in itself, how you kind of, do everything beforehand, that shows also the love that you want to involve and then you put in, and that passion that will reinforce you a lot. If you think that art just comes from sitting down, opening up a book, and then just exercising, then of course there will be no great result involved with that. You also need to be, willing to, sacrifice some time and some space in order to rehearse, exercise, train, and work on your skills and learn new things. And by that, you detach yourself from that mechanical wheel a little bit, and you get a bit more breath, right, into this whole process, and a bit more distance to what your daily schedule needs and what your actual passion is. Because here are the requirements, and there is the beauty, right? And the beauty that needs an aesthetic reproduction of your senses, of your artistic abilities, and of your tendency of going further and further and further, and explore more and more and more, and adding and adding and adding, and never stop relentlessly searching for that beautiful product that is believable and pleasing to watch. Dostoevsky once said, art is much a need for humanity as eating and drinking, right? If we don't have art, art makes us smart. If we don't have art, we go dumb, because there is nothing that will inspire us, that will take us further, that will give us the reason to look again and again, right? If you think about great movies, again, put your movies here in the comment section. If you think about great movies or your favorite movies, how many times have you watched your favorite movie? How many times have you discovered a new detail? How many times were your need for that dopamine rush of watching exactly that movie, or whatever other rush that a certain movie, a certain audiovisual product gives your system, right? You were in need for that because it kind of contains a message, it contains something beautifully arranged, and sometimes we need that. We need that as much as drinking and eating, because without inspiration there is no ambition, without ambition there is no goal setting, without goal setting there is no passion, without passion there is no everyday work, without everyday work there's just depression, there's just existing and being in this vegetative state, and we don't like that. Henry James said in his beautiful short story The Middle Years, we work in the dark, we do what we can, we give what we have. Our doubt is our passion, and our passion is our task. The rest is the madness of art. And I couldn't agree more. Right? We work in the dark, we work on those inner concepts of expressing those inner worlds that are fueled by the outward impression. That's fascinating too, right? We observe, so we have an outward impression of what is going on, and we transmit that to our inner self, our deeper self, to our core, where we elaborate on that and we process that information. It's an inner expression, and all of a sudden, and we work in the dark. We work relentlessly in the dark. Sometimes we are vampires coming out of the grave and then showing our beautiful art and going back into our sarcophagus, right? After the audition is over, and hoping for our agent to call. So we do what we can. We do what we can. And sometimes it's just not enough. So we do more in order to really have that satisfying experience. In the end, we want to be satisfied as well with what we're doing. So why be lazy or just not passionate enough about it? Art needs to be fully passionate, and he says it. Our doubt is our passion. Is this still working? Is this good? Is this funny? Is this entertaining? Is this too much? Is this too less? Should I do more? That's the passion. I'm asking myself questions all the time, reflecting and doing it again and again. Yeah, the artist, the actor needs to ask himself a lot of questions. Sometimes that can be a nagging, kind of brutal process because it never stops, right? But I'm not talking about judgmental, being too hard or denigrating your art. I'm just saying that sometimes you need to ask questions. And not all the questions can be answered, but at least the search for the answer. That is the task. Our doubt is our passion, and our passion is our task, right? That is beautiful. That's the driving force. So again, like Anibu said, right? You never know. It's never going to be perfect, and sometimes we have more output, sometimes we have less. But the thing is, this is what we love. That's why we're doing it. So there is no blocking or unblocking. It's doing it. We do what we can, and our passion is our task, and the rest is the madness of art. Once we've established a healthy procedure with ourselves, a healthy ritual on how much work we invest for our auditions, for our self-tapes, for our monologues, for our scenes. Once we have a kind of steady workflow going on, and that works for us, and we know now we've created substantial fundament, now it's time for the madness. Once we have the structure, then we can elaborate and evaluate and work and progress with the beauty, with the aesthetic display. And that can be everything. If that is stable, if the understanding of the character is stable, and if my skill set is profound, then I can do everything. I can go crazy. I want to read out one last note because I think it's from Aristotle, and he as well wasn't a great fan of art, but he understood something, that the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance, not what's happening here, because that is, that is given already, but it's not the outward appearance of things, but the inward significance. It's not the party, it's what you're celebrating, like Harrison Ford once said. So the aim of art, again, is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but the inward significance, what it means to you. What are you celebrating about art? What are you celebrating about this year? What does this year tell you? Go deep inside of yourself and look. What have you done so far this year? What have you learned? What are the implications? What do you need to change? What is your setup for the next year? What are the great projects you want to be involved with? What do you want to acquire? What kind of skills do you want to learn? What kind of art do you want to deploy next year? That is the passion, and the passion is our task, and the rest is the madness of art. And trust in that concept. Don't be too eager about following all the rules and regulations and then expecting an outrageous and incredible output, right? For yourself, a result for yourself that is way above the standard. If you're behaving like the standard, you can have an extraordinary result. So if you're just following the rules, I don't mean to break any laws, but if you're just following the mechanical processes and you're living them on a mediocre daily basis because you just need to fulfill them, and you don't find real enthusiasm in doing that, or great joy and pleasure in fulfilling all these needs and chores and tasks and expiration dates and all that, then of course your result can't be extraordinary. But if your pursuit right from the beginning is to transform that repetition and put it into a container where everything is allowed and where you're just there to explore the boundaries, and where mistakes are highly welcome because through them you can evolve and become better and not be judged, but be a version of yourself that has the total freedom of exploring boundaries in order to serve beauty, in order to serve something that is pleasing, that is entertaining, that is mesmerizing. We sometimes forget that maybe throughout the processes, maybe throughout the pressure, maybe throughout the year that we are so involved with, also with our daily and everyday schemes of our own persona, that when it comes down to creating, the audience needs to be happy and satisfied as well. It's not just, I followed all the rules, 1+1+1. I charge so much now. I have 75% charge now. I can last for so many days, and this is gonna be a remarkable result. No, because in the end, art is not only based on those simple empirical vectors like Frost said, right? It's not just a reproduction in an accurate empirical way, and then you have great art. If that would be so, we would just have photorealistic paintings all over the globe hanging in museums. It's not, but that's not the case. We have very wild, expressionate, abstract, and totally modern art and classical art, of course, hanging in our museums, because everybody was shining the light into his space from his perspective, and with that perspective illuminating his part of his universe and transforming that universe into something tangible to perceive. Does that all make sense to you guys? I hope so, because it's one of those fundamental things that we as actors, as artists, we come across relatively soon. It's quite crazy in acting and art. We need to deal with the big questions right away. We don't have time, and once we deal with them, the result will not be immediately there. It will be at the end of the process. So we will never actually know the result, but we need to deal with the circumstances and problems right away. And that's so fundamentally different to science, where we have a problem and then we solve it and we have the formula to do so. And then we can do this relatively quickly, except, of course, for the big questions on how the universe was created, or any God particles, anything like that. Then, of course, it's all theoretical. But in science, we have a problem, go to the lab, and we take all the elements necessary to solve that. We get a formula, and then we have a result that is tangible in front of our eyes during our lifetimes. In art, that will actually never be the case. Sometimes great artists will be recognized after the death, and that is also true for actors or great movies. Sometimes movies, they become way more famous a couple of years later, because maybe they were so way ahead of their crowd, or so ahead of their time, of their generation, that they were simply not understood in the time they were released. And then 20 years later, were released again, and then all of a sudden they are a big hit, because they're exactly hitting the nerve. So art, of course, there is no programmation, there is no schedule. Sometimes you create great art, but it just takes time for the people to catch up with their intellect and with their spirit. That's kind of frustrating to hear right now, but that's the mission, our passion. Our doubt is our passion, right? And our passion, that is our task. It's the beauty of doing that. It's not about getting an immediate result. It's of getting involved in the process and doing as much as you can to create an outstanding, final, beautiful, entertaining, thrilling, mesmerizing product, right? That is just mind-blowing. That's what we're here for. We always aim for that, even in a very small scene. I don't mean that you always have to play out something big and monumental. It's just holding the energy sometimes can be very, very entertaining too, when you're kind of restricting yourself to this core essence, and you give out your information as the character and just sending out very precisely what you feel, and trying to holding back because you feel that is the appropriate way of interpreting that imaginary life, and throughout this scene in this very moment, with the circumstances that are given by the author. That is so beautiful, and that will last forever. That energy lasts with you, so you're creating that, of course, for the audience, but you're creating that first and foremost also to enrich in your system and your habits, and not to have immediate empirical results. The result will be the satisfaction of looking what you just did and feeling what you just gone through, and saying, wow, that was kind of a ride. It was beautiful to do. Now let's get to the next project. Let's forget about that as soon as possible. And I think that's also the ladder to success that you climb. If you forget about your great art immediately after you've done it, like Roland Kipling in this beautiful poem "If" once said, if you are able to kind of flip the card and turn the page immediately and go to the next project, go to the next adventure, not thinking about what you just produced, that is when you're not ego driven. That is when you're really giving out just your essence to make this whole metaphysical body bigger and more beautiful to watch, and understandable also as something that will teach us in the future on how to relate to symmetry, to beauty, to artistry, to craftsmanship, to all the visual aspects, to all the ramifications and details that are coming together in this very moment to produce a beautiful scene, to produce a beautiful movie, a great play where people get involved and inspired by and entertained by, right? That is our mission. We are just that piece of the mosaic that needs to learn and acquire certain skills, and then display them in this beautiful color, and being totally satisfied of just being that little mosaic piece and not the whole plate. Because then again, then it liquefies our message too much. Then we are all over the place and notified by everybody, but maybe we're stretching our goal too thin out. We're stretching out too thin, and then the substance is not perceivable anymore. It's not really tangible anymore, not interesting anymore. Sometimes a smaller role can be way bigger in terms of impact that it has on the picture and the audience than a big role that says a lot of things that don't make any sense, or it's just serving the purpose of bringing a story forward, but is not really telling his own story. Sometimes small characters have way more capacity of doing so, because they don't need to fulfill too many aspects. They don't have to check out too many boxes of the storytelling process. They can focus on their essence way more. Sometimes these roles have the great privilege of having more liberty than the protagonist. That's crazy, but it happens so many times. And so don't be disappointed if you get just a small part, because that small part potentially has more to tell than the bigger part. It's all the world that you are creating. You are free when it comes down to art. It comes down to creating, to be able to, be your own master of the universe, to express and to receive. It's a romantic process, right? You're willing to do both things, not just one side of the coin. You express something, you impress your signature on this coin, you give it out, and then you receive another payment, right? So you receive something from the audience, you receive something, and that is a romantic process. You're willing to give, you're willing to receive. It's the tendency to give out something first without knowing exactly how it feels in the end. It's not it's not it's not like a car that you manufacture beforehand. You kind of model it now in computers as well, and you design it perfectly, all the details. You only know exactly how it looks in the end. With art, it's not always like that. You don't know exactly how it looks in the end, how it feels in the end, how it impacts the audience. Again, it's subjectively, and you don't have a clear, precise, concise, fully shaped idea of how it kind of evolves and how it will look. Definitely not when you're producing a piece of art. It's always a question of the spirits that are interacting with you in that very moment. So it's not a controllable mechanical process. Again, it's both worlds coexisting with each other. So put them together to your best abilities so you can display your artistic abilities at your best on the highest level. And that's the fun in the process. Don't cut yourself out from that. And I think, guys, that's pretty much it for today. So if you don't have any further questions, I just want to say, to kind of wind this up and kind of come to an end, that what I was trying to do today is to give you the idea that yes, we are mechanical beings. We need to respond in a mechanical way to a lot of questions, but art is not a mechanical process alone. It's not an empirical result of a logical equation that you can formulate and see and perceive beforehand before you actually replicate it. Then something that you can exercise many, many times, but actually when it comes down to doing it, then it kind of happens in that very moment and can look in many different ways. It's not important how it actually looks in the end, but that the process was flawless and that you had fun and truthfully experiencing all the boundaries of that character. And then it becomes something interesting. And it's not yours to judge why you're getting the role, why you're getting booked or not. It's about showing your work in this very instant. It's like a snapshot. This is how I look right now. This is how I feel right now. This is what I express right now in this very moment. This is what I worked on. This is my skill. This is my toolbox that I have right now. So I just want to show it to you. I feel privileged to do so. And if it doesn't work this time, it surely will the next. Right? This is the spirit, how you kind of should approach audition and self tapes. And that's the beauty also of art. Sometimes it works the first time. Sometimes you need a few execution more, a few repetitions more, and kind of refurbish, refine the whole thing. And then in the end, oh, now I got the right shape. Now I got the right tone. Now I hit the right voice. Now I hit the right movement. Now everything kind of falls into place automatically. And then you recognize, now it becomes an organic part of my artistic execution. It's not everything can be just preconceived, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And also in times like this that are truly crazy and difficult, like, get back art into your life. Yeah, use art in a smart way. Are there any things you can do a bit more artistically throughout the day? Ways of arranging your place, your environment, and how you want to cook, and how you want to use your skill set to entertain yourself, and how you want to exercise, where you want to do. There's so many different applications, and how art can be also used in your during your daily schedule to make things a bit nicer, a bit better, to let your brain have a new take on certain things he thought already would be taken for granted, or just a mere senseless repetition. Now maybe you're shedding new light on things you thought would be totally normal process. And in this way, you keep yourself alert and vivid and alive throughout the year. And then the transition isn't that hard when it comes down to let all the things go that the material and the real world needs from you. And now you plunge into this imaginary life and this other life, into this character. And now you have the complete freedom of walking in his shoes and being this other character for a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, a couple of months, maybe sometimes even. So enjoy that, dive into that, and explore that as much as you can. And if there is one phrase I want to leave you with, is Robert Frost once said, "To me, art cleans life. It strips it to form. Life gets cleaned by the art." So everything that you suffer, all the impregnations, all the influences, everything you get from your daily requirements, from the routines, from the mechanical process that we have to face every day, that we can strip it away through art. Art is a gateway that allows us to clean ourselves. It's like a spa, it's like a Turkish bath. We feel relieved. Now we can breathe again and see things clearly. It's imagination comes from the idea of illuminating a room, radiate out, be beautiful, be aesthetic, be pleasant, but also very demanding to yourself, and create a great skill set that will impress people by your pure expression of your inward significance of how you perceive the world and the universe. And I want to leave you with that. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, share this material with some other colleagues, with some other artists out there, with some people that you hold dearly. Because if that was, if you stick with us till the end, then maybe it means that you like this product. So show it to somebody else. Make it acquainted with the COACHMC studio. Book a one-to-one session with me for your next self-tape, for your next audition, for your next monologue, for your next big speech, your pitch, your big PowerPoint presentation in front of your board meeting, whatever you got in mind. Whenever it comes down to communicating skillfully, artistically, well, I'm your man. Also visit me on Instagram. It's the COACHMC. Follow adventures there as well. And see you next time with the next video next year. Because now, for this year, you're ready to perform. See you there.